Welcome to my noisy backyard garden with traffic and dogs and wind. And hopefully, we can get through all that. And I want to explain to you how am I to thin your vegetable seedlings. I've got 2 squares here of turnips that are ready to be thinned. And so I want to show you how I do that. But first of all, why? So, um, when we planted our seeds, you might recall we planted more than we ultimately want. We made a little hole and put 2 or 3 seeds in there. And that is because they don't all make it. Sometimes they're just dud seeds when they come to you in the packet. Sometimes a super heavy rainstorm comes and washes a few away. Sometimes a bug eats them. Sometimes, there's just anything could happen. So we always are conservative or maybe liberal with our seeding and put a bunch in there. And then when they get to be big enough, and we know that they've made it through some really hard, dangerous parts of life, we can thin them down to the actual spacing that we want. So let's take a closer look at these turnips. So here are my turnip seeds, and ultimately I want 9 plants in this square. So you can kind of see they're in clumps, 9 different clumps, but I've got 1, 2, 3 really nice healthy plants in that one. 1, 2, 3 in that one. And we want to wait until the seedlings have a couple sets of true leaves. So you can see these here were the cotyledons, the first leaves that just really get them going. And then they start to get their second set of leaves, which are going to look different. These will look more like the leaves that they'll ultimately have. So once you've got that, and maybe the second or third set, you can feel pretty confident that it's time to thin. If you want to see over here, this one looks pretty bad. I think that got damaged in the hailstorm. But this one's okay. It's got some nice new growth. So what I'm going to do is grab scissors and a bowl. And actually, instead of pulling out the seedlings, I'm going to just cut them right at the roots. And I'm going to leave behind the strongest, biggest, stockiest seedlings. And the rest will just be cut away. So this can be really hard emotionally. You've spent a lot of time and energy watching these guys, hoping that they survive, rooting for them, and now I'm telling you, you've got to kill them. That is not a fun thing to hear. Sometimes it's hard to decide which one to take. And honestly, sometimes I'm so traumatized by this job that I'll leave 2. Like I can't do it all at once because I'm still nervous about things not making it. So maybe I'll just thin a little bit and say, let me give it another week. See if they can, maybe we've got a freeze coming. These should be fine in a freeze, but maybe I want to be, extra careful and leave a couple of them there. But the cool thing is you can actually eat the greens. So turnip greens, beet greens, pea shoots, anything like that will be a really nice little addition to your salads or stir fries. So why do we thin our root vegetables? Um, if we were going to eat the leaves of the plant, wouldn't really matter too much if their roots got all tangled up. One plant could go looking for water and nutrients this way, the other could go around that way. They'll spread their roots out. They'll probably find the resources that they need underground, and it doesn't really matter if their roots are tangled. Now, when we're talking about carrots, beets, radishes, turnips, the part of the plant that we're going to eat is the root. So we want that to develop as big and symmetrical as it can. So we want them to have enough roots, enough room for their roots to grow. And two plants right next to each other, it's kind of fun to see carrots wrapped around each other in a loving embrace, but they're not as tasty and just not as fun and easy to harvest. So yeah, I know it's really hard, and you might need to do it in phases, and slowly go a few days at a time until you get down to the ultimate number that you want. Remember, you can eat the thinnings, so consider them an early harvest, and just get in there and thin. Here you can see my mesclun mix. I'm not going to thin this. We're going to eat the leaves, and I'm going to harvest it when they're still such babies. They really won't have time to get in each other's way, so you don't need to thin those. Over here I have some beets. These definitely need to be thinned, and beets will actually sprout a couple of plants out of one seed. So plan to thin your beets for sure. But I'm gonna wait another week or so on these beets because they only have just barely getting their first set of true leaves. And so I'm gonna let them develop a little bit more before I thin them out. With my onions here, I'm actually kind of thinning them as I need to harvest them. There were about 25 planted in this square, which is a lot for mature big bulb onions. So what I'm doing is just kind of, as I need them, going through and pulling out maybe every other one, and using it as a green onion or a small onion, and letting the others around it mature and grow big. But this way, again, you're eating and harvesting the thinnings rather than just wasting them. So I definitely recommend you use this method of cutting the ones you don't want, and don't try to pull them out, because inevitably you'll pull out one or two, disturb the roots of the other ones, and then you'll have 0 plants in your spot instead of the one that you wanted to leave. Just be very gentle. Use the tips of your fingers. Again, look for the nicest, healthiest, strongest, stockiest, straightest plant to leave behind. And soon enough, it will grow and be big, and you'll not even remember that you used to have 4 or 5 in this spot, because the whole area will be filled up with your one strong plant. These will just take off with all the room that's left for them.